Hello everybody, you're welcome back again to the Reggae Appreciation Society. Even if you aren't a reggae fan, I'm pretty sure that you already know that Bob Marley is the greatest musician in that genre, the undisputed king and inspirational figure who would transcend the music itself and became a symbol of resistance, resilience, and unity, the first global ambassador of that sound that took it to the four corners of the globe and mesmerized the entire planet into falling in love with it. But though he was a phenomenal man and artist, it's safe to say that he was a once-in-a-lifetime driver of a once-in-a-lifetime musical supercar that was his spectacular ensemble of instrumentalists in the Wailers band. There have been countless gifted bands in reggae history, but these cats were in a stratosphere of their own, more efficient and powerful than the best Rolls-Royce engine, and more incisive and sharper than the finest katana blade. The most meticulous and perfectly calibrated musical machine that the world has ever seen. They turned out the ethereal and almost breathing masterpiece rhythms that made Bob Marley reggae's all-time monarch. Superb musicians and specialists who were the very best in what they did. But who were they? Let's take a look at the Wailers band, the Kingsmen and reggae's ultimate unit. First of all, we must start at the very beginning with the original core that was the Barrett brothers. These two siblings made up the band rhythm section, or drum and bass, and were the only ones in the lineup who were with the band when Bonnie Wailer and Peter Tosh were still members of the group. Older brother Aston, the bassist, and kid brother Carlton, the drummer, cut their teeth as part of powerful bands in Kingston like the Hippie Boys, before eccentric genius producer Lee Scratch Perry added them to his studio backing band, the Upsetters. The Wailers, after hustling as independent artists, would join forces and collaborate with Lee Scratch Perry, but fell out a year after with that producer, after they found out that he was making deals behind their backs and keeping all the money to himself. When the Wailers left Perry's studio, they took the Barrett brothers along with them, and subsequently, when Peter and Bonnie broke away, they would remain as the core of the new Wailers that Bob built around them. Aston Barrett was Bob's band leader and right-hand man, and the very soul of that group, whose hypnotic bass play on tracks like Coming In From the Cold or his masterclass on I Shot the Sheriff showed he was the architect and chief conductor of the group. Carlton, on the other hand, was the very heartbeat of the band and was creator of the one-drop drumming technique. With his razor-sharp, tight-fisted rim shots and flying hi-hats, he would drive Bob Marley's greatest anthems with a thunderous and terrifying yet disciplined momentum, which has influenced every reggae drummer coming after him. And one interesting fact about the Barrett Bros is that though they were fiercely loyal to Bob, they were definitely not yes men and were known to disagree with the Top Gong on musical matters. Next up was the elite American guitar duo of Donald Kinsey and Al Anderson. Al Anderson was a product of the Berklee Musical College in Boston, with a foundation as rock guitarist. In fact, he was part of an early incarnation of rock legends Aerosmith, and later played with UK rock band Traffic at the beginning of the 70s. Traffic was signed to Island Records at the same time Bob Marley was trying to rebuild his band and getting ready to record the album Natty Dread that was the first since Peter and Bonnie had left. Chris Blackwell recruited Al Anderson to bring a bluesy international rock edge to the table, and Al did the business with a style that was incredibly clean, melodic and fluid, with his favorite guitar, the Fender Stratocaster, that he used with devastating results on tracks like No Woman No Cry. Donald Kinsey, coming straight out of Chicago, had been born into a musical family and was the son of legendary Chicago blues guitarist Big Daddy Kinsey. While Al Anderson was smoother than silk, Kinsey brought a raw, gritty and blues-heavy sound. When Al left the group for a brief while in 1975, Donald was brought in to bring the fire on the 1976 album Rastaman Vibration. His presence on that record brought a funky and stinging quality to that project, like his masterclass on roots rock reggae with a solo that blows my mind every time I hear it. Not to mention his amazing performance on Johnny Wars that set the tone for that incredibly soulful and powerfully mournful atmosphere in that song. These American guitarists together infused a tonal language that resonated with rock and blues fans on a global scale and made the Wailers an international powerhouse. Now, if these two Americans were brought in to give the band an international flavor, ace guitarist Earl Lindo was brought in to ensure the sound stayed rooted in the traditional roots reggae sound. Earl Lindo also came from a family with a musical history, as his father and grandfather had been sound system owners. But he was a natural guitar genius, After becoming a renowned name as guitarist in the legendary Soul Syndicate band, Bob hired him to join the Wailers for the recording of the Rastaman Vibration album. His addition brought a razor-sharp bounce courtesy of a high-tempo string-picking technique. He was the one responsible for the powerful skank rhythms that you hear on tracks like Rat Race and Positive Vibration. Throughout his time with that band, he played a huge role in preserving the band's earthy roots reggae element. Percussionist Alvin Seeco Patterson was one of the closest people to Bob Marley, having been like a father figure to the Tough Gong in his teenage years in Trenchtown. It was indeed Seeco that took the original Wailers to Studio One for their first audition in 1963. Alongside the Barrett brothers, he was among the first members of the new Wailers, a veteran percussionist with expertise in mento, calypso, and nyabingi drums. Since the 1950s, he played the role of the elder in the band and contributed a very delicate yet powerful texture to their sound with an assortment of instruments. His astonishing intervention at the 2-minute mark of the track Crazy Baldhead is classic Seeco in its elements, plus his mesmerizing use of a milk bottle on the song Jamming. But most importantly was his powerful role of keeping Bob grounded in the roots reggae tradition despite his exploding superstar status in those days. Now, away from the fatherly figures in the group, we have up next Tyrone Downie, the youngest or Kid Wailer, on the keyboards. While still in junior high school, he made friends with older schoolmate Augustus Pablo at Kingston College. It was Pablo that got him interested in the piano, and he became so good that at just 13, he had played on tracks like Delroy Wilson's Better Must Come and the original Wailers' Trenchtown Rock as a freelancer. By the age of 18, Bob hired him to go on tour with a new band and kept him on as he began to record the tracks for the album Rastaman Vibration. A very likable, lively and mischievous lad, he became very close to Bob, who took him under his wing like a younger brother, and together co-wrote many songs, including Waiting in Vain, Exodus, and Positive Vibration. A genius on the keyboard, his scintillating synth play on tracks like Jamming gave it a funky, futuristic edge. Not to mention his majestic church organ play on the live version of No Woman No Cry. And though the youngest, this musical genius was made the band's director of music and took their sound to the next level. Now, in terms of pure star power and personality, the closest person to Bob in that band was a fiery electric guitar hero in Junior Marvin. Though born in Jamaica, he was brought up in Britain and became a legend on the underground blues rock scene, who had played with big bands like Ike and Tina Turner and T-Bone Walker. He joined the Wailers in 1977 in London, while Bob was on self-imposed exile. Interestingly, before he joined up, he got 2 calls a day before, offering him a role as guitarist in 2 different bands. The first one came from Stevie Wonder, and the second from Chris Blackwell on Bob Marley's behalf. But after meeting Bob and forming an instant bond, he became a Wailer and brought soaring, electrifying, powerful solos to tracks like Kaya, The Heathen, and Exodus. He infused a blistering urgency into an already powerful music machine, with an impact that is very noticeable in the legendary concerts that the Wailers threw down in some of the biggest stadiums on the planet. Now, last and by no means least was the mercurial Earl Lindo on keyboards. This maestro had played with the original Wailers band back in 1973 before leaving to join a group called Taj Mahal and rejoining 5 years later in 1978, and contributed to classic albums Babylon by Bus, Survival, and Uprising. A classically trained prodigy, he was also a deep student of Rastafarian drum patterns and applied that background into all the syncopated, bouncing rhythms that were powerfully impactful on the album Survival. Alongside Tyrone Downie, they formed a powerful dual keyboard strike force that put layers of beauty on the Wailers sound that only got better until Bob's last album, Uprising. By the time Bob Marley passed away, there was no band tighter than these titans. And even long after he was gone, they would endure for many years until the passing of most of the original lineup. I believe we will never see a single lineup with that level of talent all at once ever again. A once-in-a-lifetime ensemble coming together with a once-in-a-lifetime frontman that for 8 years did more than enough to be called the greatest reggae unit of all time. So there you have it. Thank you for watching this video today. Please leave a like, subscribe, and until next time, God bless.